Hey guys, it is Marcus and Terry back with you. And today, what we're going to do is hopefully, if my screen stops being crazy, we'll be able to get going. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we are going to talk about letter number 4. And these are the letters that you can get over at talksober.com. These letters are designed to help you get and stay sober. Again, remember, we are not addiction specialists. We are not trained psychologists or addiction counselors or anything like that. So what you hear, take it with a grain of salt. Always consult your doctor, especially when dealing with detox. But today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about denial. What's the deal with denial? And we're going to talk about denial in a little bit of a different way. Because a lot of alcoholics and a lot of non-alcoholics think that denial is simply denying that you are an alcoholic. But it can also be denying certain feelings that are going on in your life that could be leading to relapse, that could be leading to a difficult time in your life, that could be leading to things that are not going to work so well for you. So we're going to talk about all of that here, and we're going to talk about the denial issue of being an alcoholic. Now, personally for me, and maybe it's different for Terry, and Terry's there. So how you doing, Terry?
I'm doing well.
All right. So personally for me, denial is an interesting thing because a lot of people look at it, and for me, I look at it and I'm like, okay, if you're questioning whether you're an alcoholic, then chances are you probably are. Either that or you're totally neurotic, which, to each his own. Either way, you need to get some help. But we got to look at that. We got to say, okay, am I in denial about something in my life? Am I in denial about drinking? Am I in denial about my sobriety? And we got to really focus on that. And what are your thoughts on the denial issue there, Terry?
Well, towards the end of my drinking, I did not deny that I was an alcoholic, but I did deny that alcohol was causing problems in my life.
Mhm.
I mean, I knew there was, obviously, I knew that there was repercussions, but I was denying that alcohol was the cause of it. And
Yeah.
that's what I see happen pretty often with people is that they just deny that alcohol is an issue. It's always somebody else's fault or something like that.
Hmm. Or even if I could, like if I had a job, I wouldn't drink so much. If my wife wasn't so cranky or my husband wasn't so cranky, then I wouldn't drink. If I was able to get this, then I wouldn't drink. And we look at that. I was like that. I thought if my business was running smooth, if my wife was different, if my customers were better, I always thought that these things were what caused it. And if those went away, then magic fairy comes in and I'm no longer an alcoholic. But what I had to learn the hard way is that I was an alcoholic regardless. I was an alcoholic because I drank the alcohol and I couldn't stop. And even when things went good, I still drank and I still kept on that cycle of craziness, the cycle of, how can I quit? Can I quit a couple days? Can I quit for a month? Some people quit for a year and they return. And it's kind of like, I think there's a Bible verse that says, when the dog goes back to his own vomit to eat it, that's kind of like how it is. It's like we're returning to the trash because for some reason it does something for us. And I don't know what it does for the dog, maybe nutrients or something. I have no idea. But luckily my new dog doesn't do that. My old one didn't either, but they will eat a big 2-pound block of cheese off the counter, so watch that. But we got to look at that, and we're like, are we returning to things? And even in my own life, recently I've been having a lot of stuff go on with family, with relationship issues, with work. Just everything's like coming down. And I look at it, and sometimes old thoughts creep in, right? Because what I learned in recovery is that a method that works in your mind never gets like put out. Okay, so if you have something that works, you're like, okay, well, I know that if I drink, I'm going to shut off the feelings, right? That never goes away as a solution. Your brain's always going to be like, well, hey, you could drink. And mine did. Even 4 years sober, it's like, hey, you know what? You could totally go obliviate this stuff. But what happens is I learned to supersede that thought. I learned to supersede that desire, and now there's a better option, right? It's kind of like when you watch the Terminator movie, and he's going along, and he's got like that little screen in his brain, and you're watching things, and it's like, oh, well, black shirt, he's got a beard, that's Terry. Or, hey, that's the enemy, or that's the good guy. And your
Right.
brain's doing that, and it's like, hey, you feel like crap. Doodle-doo-doo. Remember that time you felt like crap and you drank and you felt good? Yeah.
That's right.
Now, on top of that, you got a built in forgetter that says, well, let's not remember the time that you were on the floor quivering like a baby because you were too drunk. Let's just forget about it. Let's not remember all the times that you woke up hungover feeling like crap and you couldn't do anything. Let's not remember that, right? So it's very, very difficult to differentiate at first, but what's going to happen is you're going to start to learn new ways of doing things, new ways of living and coping. And that's what this letter is about, is the idea of false confidence based on feelings, right? And I see this a lot. And Terry, have you seen this in newly recovered people? It's almost like you don't want to predict anything, but you're like, ugh, I hope that guy makes it okay, right? Because you see someone in there. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I see the new people that are just recently sober, definitely you can tell if they're going to have problems or if they're all the way in, or it's pretty obvious to me is if somebody's going to have these issues. They're a lot of times they come into sobriety and they start to deny that they are the cause of most of their problems.
Mm-hmm.
Or they start to, like I said before, they tend to blame other people. They have all these issues that happen to them,
Mm-hmm.
instead of them being the common factor in these issues,
Mm-hmm.
and alcohol being the factor that caused these issues.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had to learn the hard way because everything happened to me. I was like the only guy on the earth, and everything was happening to me. And I had to learn at one point. I was like, life doesn't happen to me; it happens. It just happens, right? Life's going to happen whether you're doing something or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't differentiate. And we have to look at that and say, well, life just happens. That's what happens. Like, oh, well, I got sick. That happened to me. Well, there's a lot of people getting sick. There's a lot of people having things. It's not just something isolated to you. Or, maybe you lost your job, right? That's not something that just happens to you. Lots of people lose their jobs. It's the way of the world. It's the way of the economy. There's an ebb and a flow to life. And we just got to learn, hey, you know what? This is the way it's going to be. Now, let's go ahead and dive into this letter. This is an important one. At part of the time I was writing this book of letters, I was kind of talking to my brother, and I was kind of talking to, like, the generic person. So there's kind of interesting stuff. Like, I had something to kind of base it on. I was sending them to someone and getting feedback. And I noticed at one point, like, this person got really pissed at me in the letters. And I'm like, hey, dude, I'm just sending you letters. They're not even to you. It says, dear friend. It doesn't say, dear Bill or dear Frank. It's not you. Again, with the whole life happening to you, you might feel like these are to you. And if you do, good. That means it's working. That means it resonates. And this one particularly was about the false confidence based on feelings, where you get that emotional high, or in recovery, sometimes they call it the pink cloud or the honeymoon period, where you're like, hey, I got this. I'm good. I'm solved. And as I learned, and Terry learned also, it's always the one that you don't see coming that gets you. Like, I doubt Terry was sitting there being like, hey, I'm out of rehab, but in 5 days, I'm going to go drink again, or however long it was, right? It just comes up, and it's like, holy cow, where did that come from? And we're going to talk about where that comes from and what to do. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to try to read this. I'm running on very little sleep. I had a family issue last night related to what we're talking about. So we're in the thick of it. We understand what's going on. So let's go ahead and start with false confidence based on feelings. Hey, friend, I hope today is going well. I had to meet a new accountant, which is always a big fat pain in the ass, but other than that, things are okay. Today we're going to talk about feelings, what they are, what they mean, and how to deal with them on a day-to-day basis. One of the hard lessons that I had to learn in sobriety is my feelings will not kill me. They don't even really hurt me. It just feels like they do. So once we can look at them for what they are, things start to change for the better, and life gets a whole lot easier. So first off, let's set the record straight. As alcoholics, chances are you're chained. Chances are you are chained to your feelings tighter than a tugboat chained to a cement dock. After all, that's why we drink, right? We like the way that it makes us feel. When we feel angry, drinking chills us out. When we get stressed, drinking makes everything seem okay. When we fight with our partners, drinking makes it better. When we're sad, drinking gives us a hug. When we're lonely, drinking gives us friends, even though they don't really exist. All this stuff is in your mind, right? I look at this now and I'm like, when we fight with our partners, drinking makes it better. I would go have a fight. I'd sit on the patio and I would drink. And I felt like I had someone to talk to, but all I was doing was talking to myself, which,
Right.
if I did that out in public, they would have put me in the mental hospital longer than I actually was in there. But when we're lonely, drinking gives us friends. When we're fat and ugly, drinking makes us feel good, right? I hate beer commercials. It's like they know all this stuff and advertise to us anyway because they know we actually kind of believe it's true. So we keep buying cases of beer to feed the frenzy. This is part of the whole social conditioning thing. Remind me to bring that up in another letter. And while drinking does make us feel better temporarily, a whole lot is going on under the surface that you probably know about, but you're just avoiding it. And I'm going to try to keep you in the screen while I scroll. Like the times you're sad and drinking turns you into the blubbering narcissist that can't help but wallow in your own self-pity, till you wake up hungover, even more sad than when you started. Or the times you get stressed and alcohol just mellows you out so you can put things off, get stressed again tomorrow and start drinking over and over again, never really fixing the real problem, but just get it feeling better about it temporarily. Or perhaps when you're angry and get in an argument, alcohol helps you win the argument or deal with things like a tough guy, till you find out that winning every argument isn't really winning at all if it makes everyone around you leave and not want to come back. Sometimes you will win all the little battles, but lose the war of your sanity, sobriety, and long-term happiness. This is the thing with us alcoholics. We crave the fast fix. Perhaps you're like me and you grew up in an uncertain world, not knowing whether today your mom or dad would like you, respond to you, or even acknowledge that you exist. Or worse, perhaps today would be the day that you get your ass beat for no apparent reason whatsoever. And like me, whatever your situation was, you had to survive. So your little growing brain helped you by making you super adaptable. You can deal with anything at any time with no notice whatsoever. And so was life. And you learned to be on guard, to respond to things as they came your way. You're like the catcher in the baseball game, and there's 15 different guys on the mound throwing all different types of pitches at random times. Boom, a fastball right to the center. Before you even catch it, number 5 tosses you a curveball. As you're trying to forget about the fastball and get the curve, a changeup comes your way, and so it goes. And you're pretty damn good at catching most of these things coming at you from all over the place. But have you ever really learned to enjoy the game? If you're constantly responding to everything that comes at you in your life, you are never able to actually stop and actually live it. The fact of the matter is, there's this weird game set up where all those pitchers are throwing all these pitches and things seem crazy and overwhelming and you feel like you're going to explode. But no one ever asked you if you wanted to play that game in the first place. You can stand up, move to the side, and choose not to catch any of the pitches. You can be like the batter and calculate each pitch as it comes down the line, only to choose the ones you want to swing at. Or you can leave and go play a different game entirely. No, Marcus, you don't understand. My life is in shambles. I got relationship issues, money issues, family issues, job issues. I got fucking issues with my issues, and I can't just play another game. This stuff is serious. And on top of all that, I can't even stop drinking. Listen, because this will change your life. Fuck you and fuck all your issues. There, I said it. And perhaps it pissed you off a bit, but it needed to be said. And I would bet that most of your issues you have were caused by you anyway, so you have no real right to get all pissy now. You are screwing up your own life by your own hand. Now, before you rip up this letter or get all mad at this live stream, let me say that I understand where you're coming from and how frustrated you might be, because no one really sat down and taught you the rules. On top of that, no one ever told you how these emotions and feelings work. So it's natural to get pissed off when someone says something up front like I did a few minutes ago. But it doesn't have to be this way. I'm going to show you the way out, a new way of life. and you're not even going to believe how good it can be and how great you're going to start feeling. Now, back to these emotions and feelings. What is an emotion anyway? First off, the word comes from something meaning motion. Pretty obvious, right? Emotion. But what does that even have to do with anything, and how is it going to help you stop fucking up your own life and drinking all the time? If emotion is motion, and the definitions have to do with movement and stirring things like that, perhaps we can call it energy in motion. So there's this energy moving around your body, making you feel certain things based on your beliefs and stuff like that. And if some crazy lady thinks that God will hate her because she has too many cats, and some new cat jumps in her window, she's going to feel all sorts of things moving in her body because somewhere in the back of her mind, a trigger, not even in words at this point, says, bing, bing, there's another cat, and God only wants you to have 8 cats. And this is hypothetical. If you love cats, I just picked this as an example. Now, you don't have, now you have 9, and now she gets all messed up and doesn't know what to do, and the feelings pile up and make her want to run away and scream. On top of that, she says, wow, now there are 9 cats, and they all have 9 lives, which is equivalent of 84 cats. Things are getting out of hand, and now she's getting all overwhelmed because she's now thinking about that feeling and trying to fight it and figure it out. And 3 of the cats are black cats, not the ones she originally bought. These ones jumped in the window a few months back, and she's afraid because she thinks that black cats are bad. But she loves cats. She just remembers one Halloween a kid shoved her to the ground for saying a black cat was cute, and it hurt her feelings. He said black cats were really bad. No wonder her life is messed up. 3 black cats with 9 lives each. That's 27 bad luck cats in her mind. Now she's a total neurotic mess. What started as a stirring in the body has now turned into something that could make her want to go insane, take her own life, or just want to run and live on the streets talking to her cats. The point is, a feeling is just a stirring in our body designed to protect us from things. Like when you're afraid of alligators and stuff, that's good because alligators can be mean little pricks and they can bite your hands. And that feeling of fear is not a bad thing. It's only bad when we give it a meaning. Like if I was to say, damn it, Marcus, you big old sissy, you're afraid of that alligator. Seriously, he's behind a cage, you little wuss. Now I feel like a wuss, like something's wrong with me because I'm afraid of a caged up alligator. Or when I get anxiety for no apparent reason. I mean, come on. I've gone to church like 1,000,000 times in my life, and now when I go, I get anxiety. I used to speak at churches, but when I sit in the seat, I get anxiety. And it feels like I'm going to wet my pants because the emotions and stirrings are just all over the place. So I twist up and sit all funny, hoping to whatever God we're praying to this week that no one notices and I make it out alive. That's how it feels. It feels like I'm going to explode and die. But this happens only after I name it and try to fight it. Before that, it's just a feeling, a stirring, energy, and motion. You see, I can go to church or whatever. It used to be when I went to lunch, I wouldn't even eat in front of people. So I would walk out having just ordered food and moved it around my plate so that the waiter doesn't judge me for ordering a meal and not eating it. And these were not even people I went to lunch with. I was by myself, and I couldn't even eat in front of people, even though there was only like 4 people way down in the restaurant. I did this for about 2.5 years. I wasted thousands of dollars on food that I couldn't eat. Funny how I was able to drink as much as I wanted in front of people, just not eat. Kind of curious, isn't it? Now, I can go into all the ins and outs of how I was abused as a kid and forced to eat, how a kid kicked me in gym class, and, everything was crazy. And you could feel bad and say, poor little guy. Or we can just look at it for what it is. It's when my anxiety says run, even when there's nothing to run from because it's been trained to do so. My fear says eat everything on your plate or you know what's going to happen. And so I get sick and feel all messed up. So I get half drunk so I can shut the feelings off and I leave. But these emotions are not bad things. So right now, where you are, take a minute and accept yourself for ever feeling bad for having feelings and emotions. Because these feelings and emotions you set up to protect you from harm. It's pretty nice of you. It's pretty nice of me, too. This is the first step in acceptance, understanding the other point of view. And this point of view says there's nothing wrong with you for feeling how you do and thinking how you do. And now is the time to let that go and understand your feelings and thoughts for what they are. It's like lightning and storms. Some totally narcissistic people think that lightning is God's anger and storms are God's judgment, as if they know a damn thing. And I remember once when I was a kid, my dad said that the earthquake in LA, where we lived, was God's judgment because it did something to Hugh Hefner's house because he did porn, and I think it knocked a light off his porch, so God must have not been that mad at him. But he had the audacity to think that he knew what God wanted, or who God was for that matter. And I have learned that there's just some stuff that we don't know. I don't know why every bolt of lightning hits, probably just energy in the sky, in motion. I don't know why every storm happens, probably just the normal things the earth does. Seriously, if I looked at lightning as God's anger, he must hate Florida, because I've seen more lightning here in the last 3 months than I've seen my entire life. Or perhaps Florida's just charged up and ready to go. And that's all there is to it. Your emotions are just like energy in the lightning. It's when you start to obsess about them that you get the little storms and the big storms. But left alone, they're just what they are, energy. Just like the urge to drink. You get the feeling, you put a name on it, it stirs in your body. You don't have to do anything about it. The lightning's not there because of a reason. The feeling's not there because of a reason other than the fact that you taught your brain to think that way. So now you can be a total neurotic and give meaning to the number of cats and the intensity of the lightning. Or you can say, wow, feelings are what the body does, just like lightning is what the weather system does. It's all just ebb and flow. It's part of the dance. The bottom line, you're going to be all right. Your feelings won't kill you, but if you keep drinking, that probably will kill you. Almost killed me, almost killed Terry. By the grace of whatever, we're here. It doesn't make much sense to cover something up that won't kill you with something that will, does it? Also remember, you can't outthink your feelings. It's like trying to paint your walls with a calculator. You can use the calculator to figure out how much paint to buy, but when it comes time to paint, it's just not going to work. And so it is with your feeling. You can't think your way out of anxiety, but you can learn to live with it and just let it sit there. Sometimes it still tries to join me for lunch, and it says hi, and I say hi, and I thank it for sharing, and I move on. I no longer play the dance of, how can I get rid of this? Does anyone notice what's wrong with me? How can I fight this? Insanity. Nope. Now I just realize it's just a bolt of lightning on planet Marcus, and it's just sharing. But I'm going to be okay. I'm going to eat my lunch. I'm not going to have any beers because I don't need them anymore. This is how sobriety will change your life for the better and make you a new person. Better than you ever imagined. Sure, you might have some bad days and good days. For me personally, yesterday sucked. But I don't have to drink anymore. You don't have to drink anymore. And the cool thing I heard from one of my counselors in rehab is that you only really need 2 or 3 really good ideas to beat this. That's from James C. It's true. No matter what you do, there are always a few little things that will keep you from drinking no matter what. It's called the Pareto rule, which is the rule of 80%, 20%. 20% of the work you do will produce 80% of the results. Most of what you do at work isn't producing the income that the boss wants, or if you're the boss, the income you want. It's 20%. 20% of the ideas that you use are going to be the ones that cause most of your sobriety. Find them and cling to them. Now, for some people, it's calling a support group or a person like a sponsor. For some, it's going to meetings. Sometimes I do these to check in. For me, I like to do what I call the return to center check, or tell myself, hey, I can always go drink later, but right now I'm going to be sober. Another good one I like to remember is that this song and dance, all my stress, struggles, and anxiety are just part of life. It's not like the world is moving and turning and things are just happening to me. It's all pieces in this giant drama we call life. That's what the whole idea of false confidence based on feelings is about. Sometimes you'll be going through the day feeling like you have this whole thing handled and you're good to go. Perhaps you went a few days, weeks, or even months without drinking, and you feel like $1,000,000. But remember how I said it's the one that you don't see coming that ends up kicking your butt in the end? That's the deal. When you feel okay and confident, that damn lizard brain is going to say, oh, you're fine now. You can have a little beer. Come on, it's a light beer, or even an ultralight. It's like a Bud Light 55, which is pretty much water anyway. Doesn't even have that much alcohol. Or perhaps you'll have a near beer with like 0.5% or whatever. And believe it or not, I've been sober over 4 years now, and my lizard brain, the one in my brain to be clear, still wants a beer. And it's like as soon as I quit, all the breweries got together and made my favorites popular so you can get them
Of
everywhere.
course.
Right? It's like microbrewing is crazy, and those are all the ones I liked. And
Yeah.
sometimes I would like a beer because of the taste. I liked it, right? I don't like water. Soda's okay. It's a little sugary. But I liked it. It was like, there you go. I enjoyed it. And you know what? I might just be fine afterward. Might be. But why try it? Why have one more glass of insanity? I know what it does to me. You know what it does to you. Is it worth it? If I'm honest, I know myself. One of anything is never enough. Now, let's make the ass fall off pact again. Make it through the day tomorrow. Don't drink even if your ass falls off. If you're in detox, go to a doctor. If you're trying to quit cold turkey or anything, go to the doctor. Don't be silly about it. Again, I'm not a doctor. Terry's not a doctor. Go see a real doctor. They know what's going on with the physical part. But make that pack. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the things that keep us sober on a daily basis. Thanks again, Marcus. All right. So that's letter number 4. And we got some comments in if you want to take those, and then we'll discuss the letter. And if you guys have comments on the letter, put them in too.
Congratulations on 76 days of sobriety. That's awesome. And happy birthday. 41st birthday. Great. It's a cool thing to celebrate your birthday sober. You remember every part of it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thanks for your comments, Jennifer. That's great. Looks like we have, is that Cobalt? Yeah, saying happy sober 41st. It's incredible. You know, I've talked to some people that don't, that they're like, oh, I don't know what my sobriety date is. It doesn't matter to me. It does matter. For me, if every little piece of sobriety is important. It's not just one thing that keeps me sober. It's everything that I do that keeps me sober. This letter is great. It really talks about feelings and how to deal with them. You know, it talks about how Marcus had a pretty difficult upbringing. Maybe the parents were very strict or something like that. I kind of had an opposite childhood where my parents let me do whatever I want. I had the own entrance to my house. I could get away with almost anything because my older brother was the bad kid. So this bad stuff I did, just kind of rolled off their shoulders. My feelings weren't of fear of other people so much. Well, it was, but it was more fear of I haven't been taught how to deal with life. I didn't know how to deal with any of my emotions. I didn't know what to do. I was never guided with anything. And so I just kind of went through life just trying to figure it out. And I learned that alcohol made me feel good. And that's why I started drinking at a very young age. You know, this last part about the part of the lizard brain still wants a beer. You know, that happens to me as well. Not very often anymore, but you know, in certain situations where you're just not expecting it. I remember being at a professional baseball game, and some guy walked in, and it was hot. We were sitting in the sun, and it was just baking. Some guy walks by with a giant cold beer, and I was like, oh my God, that looks just delicious. I had my Diet Coke, and it was not hitting the spot. You know, it's those ones that just, like you said, you don't see them coming.
Yeah.
I went to Lake Tahoe this weekend. I rode my bike around it, and I was with a whole group of people, and they're all drinkers. None of them are heavy drinkers. They'd have a beer or two in the evening or a glass of wine or whatever. And, you know, I was okay the whole time. So sometimes you're able to deal with it. I went up there knowing that people were going to be drinking, and I was okay not drinking, and most of them know I don't drink, so it was okay. They're very supportive.
Yeah.
Then I'm at that Giants game, and I had that craving. But
And the Giants were probably losing too, so you're like, okay, now I need to go.
yeah,
But yeah, I totally get that. And it's interesting because, you know, we look at this, and I think a lot of life is spent trying to psychoanalyze why we drink, why we want to drink, what causes it. But it's interesting because you look at Terry, and he's like, he's got a good upbringing. Like me and my wife have a joke from the movie As Good as It Gets, and there's a scene where they're talking about life, and they're all talking about how they had terrible upbringings. And Jack Nicholson's in the back of the seat, and he's like, "You know what pisses you off? It's not that you had it so bad, it's that so many other people had it so good." And he's like, they have stories of their childhood at lakes with, noodle salad. And he's like, okay, this is the way it is. And we have this joke of like, some people have noodle salad. And we'd look at that like, okay, I look at Terry's, and by comparison, I haven't really talked a whole lot about Terry's upbringing, some of it. By comparison, you would probably look at it and be like, wow, Marcus got a bum rap there. And I might have. I mean, I got the rap I got. That's a fact. And we look at it. But the point is, you can look at a guy who has noodle salad and a guy who has worse than the worse. And you're like, okay, well, they're both alcoholics. So what's the deal with trying to psychoanalyze why we drink? Perhaps we just drink because it has been a solution to whatever it is in our life. Maybe a problem, maybe a feeling, maybe a discomfort, or whatever. But the fact of the matter is you're drinking and it's getting in the way of your life. And if you continue to drink, it'll continue to get in the way of your life. And we gotta focus on that. And I learned an interesting thing. It was a byproduct of one. For me, rehab was a really good experience because I never knew it, but I was a total control freak. I was like, okay, I gotta, I'm a germaphobe and a control freak. And when you go to rehab, you can't be either of those, right? You're like, okay, I'm a germaphobe, and now I'm sharing showers and bathrooms with people who were on the street hours ago, right? And I remember they're like, dude, you got to have like shoes to go in the shower. It's state law. And I'm like, oh, you do? Okay. But I learned, and it taught me different things of like, wow, I need to get over my damn self because I am the root of all my problems, being so self-absorbed. And I never looked at it that way because I always thought, well, I care about other people. People think I care about other people. Therefore, I'm not totally self-absorbed. But you can care about other people and be self-absorbed too, which is kind of interesting.
I remember in the rehab, remember you had immense feelings of anxiety, like on a scale of 1 to 10 and 11. Or
Like
something
1,000.
like that. And for me, I was okay. My first week I was completely detoxing, so I was just completely fuzzy. But I was all right with it. I knew that I didn't have control, but I was comforted in the fact that somebody was taking care of me, and I was getting through this detox, and I was going to be able to get out the other side sober. Um, so there was a little bit of anxiety for me, but my emotions were pretty well. They went pretty good. And then you got out of rehab. You stayed sober. I got out of rehab and didn't. So it's interesting the way emotions can or cannot affect your sobriety. But that's kind of
Well,
it's an interesting way to look at it.
it's interesting too because if you dive into that, you could look at it as, okay, well, Terry was comfortable in rehab. Therefore, when he got out, maybe he was kind of afraid of no comfort. For me, it was the opposite. Like I went from anxiety 24 hours a day, can't even sit still. Like I remember the first or second day in rehab, I was there. And for those of you who know me, I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'1" on a good day with the right shoes, probably 130 pounds, 140 pounds, which is a little big that way. I'm just not big this way, And there was this big dude that was there, and he was a rough dude. He was like, he wanted to fight everyone. And I remember I went to go do something. They had me doing a chore, and he kicked this bucket, and it just whoop, right by my head. And I'm like, I'm going to freaking die in here. And, it was very anxiety provoking. I learned a lot about myself. And it taught me you can get through this without drinking.
Right.
And I was like, well, if I could get through that without it drinking, everything else is pretty easy. It's like going to church and being anxious. That's cool. Don't need to drink. Um, and you just look at it that way. But again, your feelings are going to be interesting. Now, Jennifer says, I think I learned to drink from my parents. My drinking habit came from thinking that's what adults do. That's what they're supposed to do. No one told me it was bad to say or anything like that. And she says, yeah, the lizard brain thing goes there. She also says, I'm struggling back and forth, but I've gotten a lot better, still striving to get better. Right? And we got to remember that alcohol is a subtle enemy because it's our best friend. Right? It's like you don't want to believe that your best friend's out there, messing around or whatever. You don't want to believe that stuff. Same thing with alcohol. It's like, how could this thing that helps me really, really be bad? So it's kind of interesting. You want to take Peter's comment there?
One beer leads to 12 to 20. It only took me 150,000 Budweisers to figure that out. That's about right. By God's grace, I am alive. And thank you for help, gentlemen, for saving lives. And yeah, that's it. It's for me. I understand it's not the 20th beer actually that gets me drunk. It's that first one. And what I mean by that is that first. If I had that first drink, I may not start drinking those 15, 20 a day right away. I may be able to control it, but the fact is that I have alcoholism in me, and eventually that one beer will lead to those 20 a day, even if it's a month down the road, even if it's 6 months down the road. I can't touch that one. So that's it. That's the important thing for me, is to just, I got to do whatever it takes. Have that first drink.
Yeah, so it's interesting because, that first drink is really the one. And I had a guy early on in my YouTube channel, and he was just grinding me about, the first drink and this and that, and you gotta. And his debate was, do you have defense against the first drink? And I was like, yeah, you do. Your defense is not to take it. Right? Your defense against the first drink is not to take it. But when you take it, what happens is your mind is now changed because it's been trained to be changed, and something it does to us. And I think I just turned Terry's audio up. Say something. Let's see if it's better.
Hello. Testing. How's that?
Is that better, guys? Should be okay. And a lot of people wonder why my eyes dart around when I'm doing this. I got a screen here, a screen here. I got your comments here. I got Terry on Skype here. So there's a lot going on.
I only have 2 screens.
Yeah. So we got a lot. Cool. So it looks like that did solve the audio problem. But yeah, it's that first drink. It's a thing that goes on. Like Jennifer, you're never going to get drunk if you don't drink. I guarantee it. If you don't drink, you'll never get drunk.
Right.
So the solution is not to drink. We're gonna tease with it, and we're gonna look at it, and we're gonna be like, oh, maybe at the baseball game I'll get one of those ones. And at baseball games they serve it in a bathtub, so you're pretty much screwed. It's like this big, It's like here's your bathtub of beer, and then of course when you go places, it's also like you can get the small beer for $3.99, or you could get like the giant pitcher for $4, and you're like, well, I'm being thrifty. But at any rate, don't have any of them. Save all the money and save all your sanity. Chad says, talk sober, that's us, told me anxiety from alcohol wasn't real. I couldn't believe it. So I was sick from drinking, with my liver poisoned. I had no choice to take a break. I waited, and when the anxiety came, I said, not real. Cool. Good. And it's not. Like, it's just something that goes on. It's like our brains were wired to be like cavemen, right? It's like, hey, you see this, you got to go run. And we get these feelings like, holy shit, I got to go run. And it's like, I'm sitting there in church. I don't got to run. Now, I can tell you where it's from. When I was a young kid, one of those Yahoo pastor guys drugged me up on stage and like traumatized the shit out of me in the name of, I'm going to tell you what God's going to do for you. And then he's like, oh, if you don't do what my prophecy says, then that's your fault. I'm like, so you're telling me that you prophesied that I'm going to do this, But if I don't do it, it's my fault. You're still really a prophet and you're not a fraud. Well, we all know he was actually a fraud. But that traumatized me. And now when I'm in church, I'm always afraid that that's going to happen. In the back of my mind, it's not words. I'm not sitting there thinking, well, that pastor's getting kind of close or anything. It's just something there. And it's pretty common. A lot of people have trauma around churches. And one of the big things is remember that you're not alone. You're not alone. There is a big world out there, and there are people that deal with these things. So let's take a couple others. Terry?
Well, Natalie, that's great. You're 1 year sober tomorrow. Good job.
Awesome.
Struggling on and off for 15 years. Yeah, I think I struggled with my. Well, I drank for about 37 years, but I struggled with trying to quit for about 5 years. It was a difficult thing, and yeah, so it just takes what it takes. But 1 year, that's a really great accomplishment right there. Awesome job.
Chad says, holy crap, this last 12 years of my life, I was hanging from the fake fear of anxiety. And it is. I mean, you got to look at it. And I learned that sometimes these feelings will cause things in your body, learn what's going on with your body instead of running from it. Peter says, great point. We are never alone. Reach out, stretch the process. That's what I personally, in my mind, think is the benefit to group programs.
Yes.
Is the fact that that's a missing part of your life. Because when you're an alcoholic, you feel like something's wrong with you. You're hiding. You're there, and you're like, this is just me. No one else hides beer under the grates of the barbecue and drinks it when it's 110 degrees outside and it's not cold. No one else does that. And then I went to rehab, and they're like, holy shit, you did the barbecue thing too? And I was like, what? I thought I was the only, but you're going to learn that a lot of people have that. A lot of people deal with anxiety, and we got to look at that. So, yeah.
Right. And Jennifer did the 30-day challenge, and it was awesome. Then I started drinking again. Not sure how I fell back in the hole. It's a difficult thing. Sometimes, you maybe I wish I had an easy answer, but maybe it was just that you said you were going to quit drinking for 30 days, and then your back of your mind, that lizard brain was saying, all right, I could do 30 days. I'll wake up in 30 days and start drinking.
Yeah.
But it's a difficult thing.
And
Naomi says being sober is freedom. I love it. Celebrating my 41st birthday sober, and yeah, congratulations again, Naomi. For me, sobriety is freedom, but I'm not 100% free. I have alcoholism in me, and I do have to do things daily and constantly to make sure I keep that alcoholism in check, and so that I am ready when that craving comes that I'm not looking for, or that beer gets handed to me and I'm automatically reaching out to grab it and drink it. It's so I just do what I can every day.
it's interesting too, because one of the things that in rehab was a big thing for me, I didn't want to relapse. I was terrified. I went around and I asked every person that was on staff there, including the cook, but he wasn't an alcoholic. The other cook was, so I talked to her. And I was like, how do you stop relapse? How do I not relapse? I don't want to relapse. And so for me, one of the things that I look at is this stigma about relapse. One, I don't think it ever has to happen. Like, I don't think it's inevitable like some people think. I think some people can go and just not drink the rest of their life. And two, I don't think it's the end of life as we know it if for some reason you find yourself in that situation. And remember, I said find yourself in. Okay, we don't want to give you an out like, oh, well, when I relapse, okay, here's what I'm going to do. No, but if you find yourself in that situation, a lot of people are like, well, there goes 10 years down the drain. No, it doesn't. You still have 10 years experience. Just because you don't have a coin that says 10 years does not mean you have the experience. So if you find yourself there, say, you know what, those 10 years of experience, I'm not going to go drink more because, holy shit, I ruined it. I'm going to say, you know what, those 10 years were worth it. I'm going to put it down and I'm going to go get better. Right? Put it
Right.
down and get better. Minimize the damage if you find yourself there. Because so many people are like, well, I'm out. Fuck it. We're out. Let's have a rager. And to me, that's silly. It's like, why would you want to do that? And now, knock on wood, I don't know what would happen to me in that situation. One of the things I learned in sobriety is I have no freaking clue how I'm going to act until I act. No idea. I don't know. I could sit here and say, hey, I'm
Yeah.
perfectly fine. And, maybe something can happen. I don't know. And I think
Absolutely.
in the insecurity of that lies the ability to notice it instead of just reacting. So we got a couple others if you want to take those.
Well, yeah. Let's see where to go. Peter said, "Any tips on staying present when the urge comes out of the blue?" In one of the earlier letters, was it the last week's letter? I think it was, but it's mentioned in this letter too, and that's pausing, and that's just stopping for a lot of times. 15 minutes is all it'll take, and just pausing, not taking that drink. Think
Ah,
about what will happen with the drink. Think about the consequences of taking that drink. For me, what I usually do is if that urge does come up, it's not a matter of just pausing. It's pausing while and do something else, going for a walk, anything that'll just take your mind off. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they say go help somebody or make a phone call to somebody. So they say the same thing, which is just try to pause.
and it's
That's
interesting
that's
too
that's it.
because I can't pinpoint how many times our weekly show here has
I'll
kept me
be right
sober.
back, Marcus. My dog
Okay.
is doing something bad. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I can't pinpoint how many times doing this talk every week has probably kept me sober. Right, I've had a terrible week last week, and maybe this is helping, and we got to look at that. But I want you to remember, for Peter, he says, how do you stay present? If you've ever seen the movie Home Alone, it's a good movie. Probably not one you want to watch in June, but there's a point where the kid goes downstairs and there's the heater, and he's got one of those like radiator heaters down in his basement. And he's terrified of this thing, and he goes down there and he's terrified of it, and he runs back up. And one day he comes down and he hears the thing, and you know how your mind works. He doesn't just hear the radiator going, "Rrr." He hears it say, "Hello, Kevin," and he freaks out. And at one point, he just turns to it and he's like, "Shut up." And we can take those cravings and those thinkings and we can say, "Shut up." Right? We can say, "Shut up." And remember that 15 minutes is about all it takes for it to
Right.
go away. It's going to go away. It's like I learned, I think I talked about it last week. I used to think that coffee woke me up in the morning. But then when I went to decaf, I realized that the process of just sitting there woke me up in 15 minutes anyway. Right? So they're going to go away anyway. Um, let's see. Jennifer says, do you drink non-alcoholic beer? I have never drank non-alcoholic beer, but I have had hop tea, which is tea made out of hops, which has zero alcohol content. Um, but that's the only thing I've had. It doesn't really taste like beer or act like beer, but it does have hops. It's like a tea. But no, I don't want to have non-alcoholic beer because of the small content and the reminder of the taste. For lots of us, taste and smell is a big trigger. So
Right.
why do it? You know.
There's other things too, and non-alcoholic beer has 0.5% alcohol,
Mhm.
and from what I understand, any alcohol at all can trigger our cravings. So for me, no non-alcoholic beer. Naomi or Natalie had mentioned that. Oh, that was my dog coughing because he's eating
Sounds like
bad
a
stuff.
person. That was funny.
Um, but Natalie mentioned that she had a ginger beer and it was really good. But it tastes nothing like beer. I agree. I like ginger beer, and that you're right. But it has zero alcohol at all, and it's okay. But it's not a beer, and it doesn't taste like beer. Another danger of those non-alcoholic beers is, let's say you're at a party drinking a non-alcoholic beer, and you put it down, and then you accidentally pick up the real beer that's right next to it and take a swig and take a big old chug of it because you're thirsty, and then there you go. You just put some regular alcohol into your body, and And like Marcus said, it reminds you of beer, and it may trigger a craving again. So that's just kind of why I stay away from that stuff.
One thing I will say on that too is let's not fool ourselves. Um, because when we look at that, I remember when I was first starting to try to quit, I would get non-alcoholic beers, and I tried the whole, well, if I alternate, like if I have five non-alcoholics and one regular, I'm still getting the kind of feeling, and and I played with it, and it got to the point where I would go to the store where when my wife would go pick up the kids, and I would get real beer, and I would pour it in the non-alcoholic beer bottles, and it shows like how our brain works. And for me, I know that I shouldn't drink non-alcoholic beer because I'm just playing stupid. I'm just being an idiot. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what's the point? Like, is it really that beneficial? Um, and we just got to look at that. Chad says, I used the approach that Talk Sober showed to get ready to quit drinking. I had no idea I was even quitting when I did. I was such a slave to it. At our final moments, was telling booze it was only for a week. Okay, cool. I think that's good. I think that's how we're doing it. Then he says, where'd it go? But it was like a voice came out of me that said no to the alcohol, and he finally stood up and said no to drinking. And when I looked around after 40 minutes of saying no to anxiety, it was gone. Awesome. For some reason, some of the crackpot things that work for me will probably work for you too. You want to take Naomi's there? I think that's directed to you.
I'm like you, Terry. I know I can't ever do just one. I'll turn back to 18 and 24 all over again. So never again. I know I can't, and I don't even want to. Yeah, I just have to agree with you. I got out of rehab, I don't know, like 5 days or something, maybe a week. I thought about that one drink. I had that one drink, and the next day I was drinking close to a handle of vodka a day. It took nothing. So, people have told me that that's what happens. They told me that before I had that one drink. I knew it. I had the knowledge, but something inside me didn't believe it, and so I had that drink anyways. And that's the way this illness of alcoholism works. It'll convince you no matter what you know. It doesn't matter about your knowledge. It's what you do
And
to stay
don't
sober.
reason with it. Don't reason
Yep.
with it. It's like trying to reason with a crazy person, right? It's
Right.
like you're not going to win, right? And what happens is it gets you in the traps. Like it got Jennifer in the trap of, well, maybe I'll try a non-alcoholic, right? And if you're going to talk to it, and there's a great psychotherapist, I guess he'd be, that I like to listen to. Now, one, he's crazy. Okay, this dude is nuts. But he has some good advice, and he would tell things about, hey, I would go into mental wards to help people, and instead of doing like most people did, which is talk about the content, right? Okay, you're crazy. Why do you think you're really Jesus? Why do you think this? Instead, what he would do is he'd be like, okay, there's two people that think they're Jesus. I'm just going to like put them on a bench together and be like, so you're Jesus? You're Jesus? Okay, yeah, I'll be back in an hour. He came back an hour, and they're like, well, we can't figure out which one's the real Jesus, so neither of us is. And what happened, as silly as it is it broke it up by not digging into the content, right? You're confronting it, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to get into the content of maybe I can have one, maybe I can have two, maybe a non-alcoholic, maybe just at parties, maybe just at home, maybe only on weekends, maybe when I go out, maybe when I stay home. And that's the insanity, right? That's alcoholic
Right.
insanity. Welcome to it. It sucks. Now it's time to get better. But don't try to reason with it. Don't try to toy with it. Just like you wouldn't reason with a toddler who's throwing a fit. You don't reason with them. You break the state. You snap them out of it. You don't sit there and be like, well, I know that toy was really valuable and the dog ate it, but well, maybe we'll try to get it and patch. You're not going to do that. You're going to be like, A, we'll go get a new toy, or B, shut up about the toy and go to your room, or whatever, right? But you can't get in the content. Now, Chad says, I never thought I would quit drinking, but drinking quit me. And once I was 5 minutes out of not needing a drink, I started to think I might never need a drink, ever. And I really like this feeling. So cool for that, Chad. That's
Yeah.
it's a good way to look at it. Drinking quit you. All right, you want to take? I think there was. Let's see. Natalie is up next.
Natalie, depression and
Depression.
anxiety is the worst when stopping. I had to go on medication for mood stabilizer, and then they put me on, what is that called? Maldazone. I never took drugs, so I can't pronounce them. It's for
Mm-hmm.
alcoholics. Oh, I have no
There's a
desire to
desire
drink.
stopper.
It's a what?
Desire stopper. It's supposed to,
Oh, I
I
see.
think it's the one that makes you physically sick if you try to drink alcohol.
Huh,
So it's trying to rewire your brain. Some people say it works
I
really
see.
good. Some
Well,
say it doesn't.
yeah, depression and anxiety. I didn't have that. I was blessed or something. But when I got sober, I definitely had depression and anxiety when I was going through detox. But after detox, I was happy as a clam. But I do see a lot of people that they go through a lot of depression and anxiety, and they just well, like Marcus's letter is explaining, it's a matter of just understanding that these feelings are going to happen. They're going to be these feelings are going to be stronger as you're in early sobriety, and you learn to control them. But that's all they are, is feelings. They're not going to kill you. And I love that one line in there that Marcus put in there was, why would we take something like alcohol that will kill us to cover up those feelings of something that won't kill us? It just seems crazy, but it's what I did, and it's what a lot of alcoholics tend to do. But yeah, anxiety and depression definitely is a factor in many people's recovery, and a lot of times you have to seek outside help. That's why a doctor's help is absolutely imperative when getting sober, and even in early sobriety, and sometimes longer. It's just sometimes what's needed.
Yeah. Let me take Jennifer's because I think that's an important one. She says, Natalie, when I was doing my 30-day challenge, the non-alcoholic beer is what got me through. I would I would call that out and say no, it's not, because you eventually went back to drinking. So it's not. It might have nursed you along, but it didn't solve the problem. And what we want to talk about is solving the problem of finding something better. So I would look at that. I mean, can it be a solution? I don't know. I mean, maybe there's people who just drink non-alcoholic beer that used to be alcoholics. I don't know. But my question to you is it working for you? Right? Because I used to be able to stay sober for about 3 weeks. That was my record. And something would always send me back out because I didn't learn a new way of life, right? I didn't learn something new. Um, and like Peter says, non-alcoholic beer is a real bad idea. Mental and physical triggers. I agree with that for me personally. So yeah.
There's
Uh,
the Natalie has a good one right there. My husband is a big beer drinker, so I have to live with it in my house. That was the hardest thing. Now I just ignore him or leave the house. I work out now instead of drinking, and yeah, it's good to have a different avenue. My wife is not an alcoholic. She drinks normally. She drinks, she pretty much most nights of the week. She pours herself a glass of wine, drinks half of it, and dumps half of it out. Of course, me being the alcoholic, I just think that's pure insanity. How why would anybody ever dump out alcohol? But that's me. But I've learned to. It wasn't even a matter of learning to live with it. It's me getting the tools that I need to have so that I don't desire the alcohol, even though there's a bottle of wine in the house most of the time. I know a lot of people deal with trying to get sober, and they have pure alcoholics in their house. That's even more difficult, and that what you're doing is getting away. That maybe that's a solution. Maybe that's the solution that needs to happen. For me, I just try to just it's a non-factor for me anymore because I do what I need to do to stay sober.
cool.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah, and for me, I remember in the very beginning, in sobriety, there was nothing in the house. I didn't even have cooking wines because I remember one time I was trying to get sober and all we had was cooking wines. If you've ever tasted them, don't. It is terrible. It's like just a salty, disgusting, gross. but that's what I used because that's all I had. I downed them, and it's probably screwed up my body because the salt content drained me of life as we know it. um, but we got to look at that, and we got to be like, okay, let's focus on this. Let's make it work. So if you cannot live with it, talk to your spouse. Say, hey, you know what? Can you have it outside, out back at the bar? Obviously don't encourage drinking and driving or anything. But can you not have it here because I'm trying to do this?
Right.
And sometimes that's the best thing. Luckily for me, my wife does not drink. She just doesn't care about it. She thinks it's stupid to drink. So she was very on board with not having anything in the house. But you gotta watch it. You gotta really pay attention to, am I using something to escape? Am I using something to cope? Am I learning to live with life as it comes at me? And just really focus and pause and reflect and do what you have to do. Focus on you. If you have a spouse that's drinking and they won't stop and it's in the house and it bothers you, make a plan to take care of you because you can't deal with alcohol. So figure out how to do it. If that's going away for 90 days or a year or whatever. For me personally, it took me a year to be able to sit at a bar and wait for a takeout order.
Right.
Up until then, I was shaky and jittery. But now I can go sit there and the guy next to me can have my favorite old drink. And I don't really care because I don't want to go insane again.
Absolutely.
So yeah. But I think we're at about a wrap unless there's anything you guys really want to talk about. Jennifer's got one I think would help people. She says her downfall is the weekends. During the week, I can be a saint, but once that Friday comes, it's like, watch out. Why? Why is it like that? Why is Friday any different? Are you tired from work? Do you think you deserve it? Is that what people do? I mean, does everyone go get drunk on Friday, Saturday, and maybe Sunday? I don't know. I know in the South, you can't buy a liquor on a Sunday, but it doesn't stop people from getting drunk on a Sunday.
You could also do you could do a little test on yourself. You could see maybe Friday you're saying watch out because you go out to the bars with your friends or something like that. Try going out to the bars with those friends and not drink, or just have one, and see if you can do that. That's a good test to see if maybe alcohol is a problem or not.
And try outing yourself. The first thing I did, because I started going to lunch by myself again, because I work at home and I got to get outside, otherwise I go crazy, crazier than I am. But when I went to lunch, the lady came over. She had all my drinks on the thing. She's like, "Here you go," and I'm like, "I'm an alcoholic. I'm in recovery." Never brought him again. Never asked me again. And I just started telling people. I told friends that I used to drink with, "Hey, I'm an alcoholic. I can't do this." "Well, what about me? Are you judging me?" "No, I don't care about you. You can
No.
do
Yeah.
whatever you want. That's cool. But for me, and some people actually encourage it. Like some people are like, "Hey, you know what? Hey, she's on a alcohol free kick. That's good. That's strong for you. For me, I'm gonna have another one. But for you, that's great." And that's cool, right? And we got to look at that. And she says, "I think it's mental. It is mental. This whole thing is mental. And if you try to fix a mental problem with alcohol involved, very, very difficult because you're not thinking straight."
Yes.
So you got to look at that. But I hope this helped you guys. I look forward to next week with letter number 5. Again, you can go over to talksober.com, put your name and email in the box. We'll send you summaries of the letters and the recordings and everything. And then you can also join our monthly program where we're going to teach you other things about life. We got little tools and software to kind of help you out. We have it priced at $67 a month, which I think is affordable for most people. I know for me, that was like an average day of beer or liquor or whatever if I went out to lunch. So, now if you absolutely cannot afford it, contact us and we'll let you in free because we want you to get help. And later, if you get sober and hit the lottery one day, maybe, kick us down some or something. But we want you to get sober, and that's our main concern here.
Right.
And that's why we do these. That's why these channels and these talks are all free for you. And if you like to keep them that way for everyone else, join our monthly thing and, get some extra stuff, and we'll help you out. I actually have someone I'm going to hire that's going to make notes of all these videos. They do it for my other business, and they do it great. And they'll make notes for you that you can print out or put on your phone, you know, and you're out there and you're like, hey, I need to talk myself off the ledge of the bar, you know, pull up the letter, read it, pull up the notes, listen to the talks, but do what you got to do. So here's to sobriety. Thanks, Terry, for being here. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Share this video if you're in any Facebook groups that talk about alcohol. Feel free to share this video. I think they'd love you for sharing it. Share it with anyone you think could help, and subscribe if you're not subscribed, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks again for
Right on.
listening. Stay sober.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Marcus.